competition was started 6 years ago by Marquita Lister, who had a vision that we should encourage the composition by by African American composers, young composers. The first competition, our winner was Brandon Spencer, who at the time was a 24-year-old just out of undergrad at Claflin University. Brandon has continued as a singer and as a composer. Our second winner, as we showed you on Friday, was Kyle Wooten, who's gone on to become a professor, got his doctorate, teaching at a university, and reminded me today he's moved to Ithaca College this fall. Our judges today are Juliet Williams, who is professor of composition and conducting at Berkeley Conservatory of Music. I sang his song Africa on Friday night, and that was in honor of his work. This is the second time I think you've been with us?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
second time, but he's also been a long-time conductor for a trilogy opera. So all the world premieres of a lot of the work of African American composers in opera, he's been doing a lot of that work. We also have, he's not on the screen, but we were supposed to have Anthony Kelly, who is a professor of composition at Duke. He does a lot with instrumental music, but it's also particularly large forms like symphonies, but he's also done a few songs. Then, as we introduced to you on Friday, you've heard the beautiful music of Dr. Wooten, and our head judge for the last, Dr. Mark Lomax, and are always happy to have a wonderful composer that we will feature his music next year in our competition on the welcome concert. So we're trying to let you see some of our composers. We've had, in addition to them, Bill Banfield has been one of our composers who's doing a lot. Yuzi Brown, who I sang was actually our head judge for several years. I know you were with Yuzi, who's a wonderful song composer. And so the format of this competition, what we generally do is we have the composers, and this year we only have one contestant, but what a beautiful composition and a mature composition he's written for us. So this is Willie Cornish. He's the composer of the piece that we're going to hear this afternoon. I'll give him a brief second to introduce the piece. He's a first-year master's student at Michigan who came from Furman University. He's written quite a few songs. I actually heard his songs when I was doing a master class in Furman a couple of years ago. So I'm happy to have him introduce it. So he will introduce the song. We're happy to have Juliet Schlefer, who you heard on Friday, sing the song. So she's got a little time to stretch it out from having sung it then. We're thankful for Peter Smith, of course, playing for us again. And then that will be an opportunity for the judges to talk and ask questions. So I'll turn it over to you first, Willie. Would you just tell us a little bit about the piece and how you conceived it?
Sure. Hi, everyone. The piece we'll be hearing today is entitled Dear Diary, Entry on a Dream as Wish Fulfillment. And this is a piece I completed this past semester. I did a project with a fellow colleague of mine in the master's program called Between the Lines, and a composer was paired up with a poet within the Michigan school. And I was paired up with a Nigerian poet named Ebenezer. And we had a great time, just talking about moving to a new place, starting school, trying to, get acclimated in a new place. So the poem is pretty much about his time moving to Michigan and him missing home and feeling ostracized because, he was from a place where everyone looks like him, and now he's in a place where, being African in a primarily white space, it's just been very hard on him. So we kind of related on that aspect. So when I was reading the poem, it's very beautiful, and when I was reading it, I kind of visualized it as it being like a diary entry, and that's why he titled it that. So there's two different realms with the piece. I would say the beginning is the when Ebenezer is awake And then as he's falling asleep, he's going into this dream world. And this is like him trying to get through his problems within his head, while also, just writing it down within his diary. So there's 3 different sections, and at the end he wakes up from his dream, and he feels better, but he knows there's still an underlying problem that he's trying to get through.
I desire to go back, to operate my life like a video recording that rewinds when I click the right button. Return to the country I once desired to leave. Yesterday, darkness descended early, and it was night, midday. It didn't matter if it rained. The snow melted and there were streams running down the roads. I mean to say, sometimes it is the weather, a little unfamiliar, that rips through my resolve. In my sleep, I see the tropical sun shining, but it's only a floodlight taunting my desire for warmth. It's been like this for weeks. Repressed impulses resurrecting after my watchful sublimation goes to bed. I don't want the sun for its own sake. when I wake up, I call home to affirm by the textured voices of my family that there is a place in the real world where there are arms that could swaddle my loneliness.
Maestro, would you like to start? I really like the work. It really reflects the poignancy of your writing. It has you describe the colors, or really the piano part is describing the surroundings that the song is taking place, which is very important. And you write in a way where the words can be understood. I hate to say that, but a lot of composers, they can't, what are you saying? How can it say? Wires, I don't know what, it's just notes. So you're writing, very well in that genre of making words and the story clear in the song. I mean, that's so difficult, especially, with composers today. They're either going for some abstract kind of concept that you're supposed to figure out what the song is about. But the way that's happening now with various operas, people want to know the story. They want to understand the story. They don't want to, try to figure it out. Or, I saw something, somebody handed me a score, and I hate to say it, I said, "What's that? What does it mean? It don't mean anything." I mean, although they were supposedly describing this scene, it never did. So you are, a tradition of Black composers that uses the surroundings and the voice to express emotion and concept, which is very, very important for a young composer. And my advice to you is to keep doing that, explore that even more. So many of our young composers right now, I've seen, they are, writing superficial stuff. I hate to say it, but it's true. A lot of superficial stuff, or they're running with what we call the Black of today. Okay, let me write something and, it's not that good, but somebody will say it's okay. But you are, what I see you need to always strive to make the best excellence of the music, to make music part of your soul, and that really don't worry about what other people are trying to be in favor with. Your goal is to make music, and that really paints a composer, and that's what I like.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you so much for using this text to tell a story and to really center the idea of dreaming and resolution and yearning. So much of the community here at the competition, we attended a wonderful masterclass last night with Marquita Lister, where she made a case for text. And so in this piece, I just want to uplift a few things about considerations for text, just from my choral music brain. So as a composer that spends most of their time in choral music, there are a couple of rules that we just kind of abide by hard and fast. So number one, rule of the steady beat, anything that's longer than a quarter note has to either grow or decay. And so we want to make sure that there's consistent demarcation in the score with that. So that way it promotes both forces doing the best that they can to uplift a certain actionable item. So another thing, so having directional awareness with the text. So it's called the rule of directional awareness. And so I put that here in the word resurrecting. And so we want to make sure that this idea of resurrecting has upward and or forward motion. And so that can be articulated a few ways. Chief of which in the vocal line, so you can have the vocal line ascend or have that being repeated a little bit more intensely to promote the idea of coming back to life. In the accompaniment of piano, you have this dreamlike sequence with the continuum of 16th notes. And so if you had upward motion in that construct of thirds to where we're moving to like other adjacent harmonic areas to support the idea of resurrection, great. In measure 92, you promote the word robust. And so text can either be repeated or stated somehow differently by rhythmically stretching it. So you could have probably explored that melismatically to give a more robust push to the singer to really center the idea that something is as vast as a dream would be aligned with that actionable item. So I'm always a stickler for text when conducting and studying choral music, and so it's just easy for me to make that transfer as a composer in the actual score. So those are just very basic ideas to consider going forward, but otherwise great sequences here and a great commitment to trying to tell the story between spoken and sung text.
Thank you so much. I would definitely implement everything you just said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, great. Hi, Willie, this is Dr. Lomax. I agree with everybody so far that this is a successful piece, and I enjoyed listening to it. And really, we're nitpicking to a certain extent because it is a good piece, and we want to make sure that you have, even more success with it, right? So my comments are going to be similar to Kyle's. There are just a couple of technical things that I wanted to point out. One is you need to make sure your spellings are consistent. In measure 72, as an example, you have an A flat, and that texture, I think, is some kind of F sharp chord. So you want to just make sure your spellings are consistent, right? Those little things, they count, right? Two, spacing for the lyrics. We want to make sure it's as readable as possible, and there are some times where your words are bunching up, right? Yeah. So one of the things that I look at, I read a lot of grants, and I look at a lot of scores, and if the scores are sloppy, I stop looking at it sometimes. If a grant has bad misspelled words and bad punctuation, I stop reading it. So you could have a wonderful piece, but if somebody's looking at a lot of scores and they see these little things aren't right, it might convey that you don't care as much about your work as you want other people to, right? So you want to make sure these little things are taken care of, because that's the easy stuff. I did have a question about just kind of how you're painting things on the piano. You use a dotted 8/16 figure throughout, both in the voice and in the right-hand piano accompaniment. And you have this interlude from like measure 81 to 88. I was wondering if you thought about, instead of returning right to the 16th note motif, kind of growing that dotted 8/16 into that running pattern of 16th notes to kind of, again, paint the picture of moving from the quiet, dead footsteps to, again, motion. There's a lot that you can do with the piano to kind of paint a picture, especially when the voice is not there. And I think this would be a good time to do that. Have you thought about that? Did you choose the 16th notes the way you had for a particular reason?
Yeah, so the reason why I chose that is while I was reading the text, I felt like there were moments where the poet would, give us some information, then he would come back onto his thoughts. And so I kind of did that to kind of harken back to the very beginning of when the song first started, because we're kind of starting back at square one, and then we're kind of still pushing forward until we finally expose the true deep down feelings about why he's feeling this way. So that's why I did that. But what you just said, I think would have probably worked better, because it would have added more interest to it at the same time. So it was that. Also in combination too, since there was so much happening before with the dotted 16th notes and the chords and things like that, I kind of wanted it to kind of chill out for a second, So that was kind of my reasoning behind it, but I'm definitely all for what you suggested.
That makes sense. One other question, and then we can let you ask us questions or go to the next part. There are certain places where I think more dissonance would be great.
Yeah.
Like throughout the piece, there are places where I put more crunch, and one of those places is right before that part where you end on quiet. I love the descending harmony, and there is an A right there in the left hand, and it just sounds so like a nice resolution, and you're talking about getting out, because it's not a great place. Like, you never want to return. You want to emphasize that you're not going back. Is there, right?
I'm not sure.
Did we
His
lose
connection
him?
cut out, but he's not in the Zoom.
Willie!
Okay, we will. Hold tight.
Where's the Michael Jackson song when you need it?
Too late.
Hey, Willie, welcome back.
Yeah.
You can hear everything okay? You good?
Yes, left off on the crunch.
Oh, yes. Yes. I just felt like you had a really great descending harmonic figure there at 78 into 79. And that A, I knew it was coming. Right? And one of the things Maestro Williams mentioned, that we're in this tradition of black composers. And I think, as it relates to black music, black composers are dealing with one of the higher forms of art. That's just me, and I'm biased because I'm a composer, I guess. And when we're creating art, sometimes our job is to do something unexpected, to create an expectation, and then not necessarily resolve it in a way that is expected. The artistic or the craft is to create an expectation and then create surprise. Right? And I think one of those places, that's why I kept saying more crunch, right? Because what you ended on, the decisions you made, are the ones that were expected, right? You realize the expectations. So I think more surprise, using more dense harmony sometimes to make a statement would be really hip.
Definitely agree with that. That's one challenge that I kind of had while making the piece. I just felt everything was just very, very pretty, lush chords, and I kind of really wish I kind of went more with just really going at it for those moments.
Great,
so, yeah,
great. It's always good to have a little funk.
Oh,
Yeah.
One of the things that as a young composer, and I remember when I was a student of John Quigliano and Ulysses Kay, and they both had complete opposite views of my composition. In fact, John Quigliano, we fought all the time, and I used to scream at him and tell him that, I don't really want to compose like you. But then later on, I felt good because he started writing the red violin and the various other things. He was more composing like me then. So what I'm getting at is explore listen, open your ears, and what Mark said is color, listen to different colors, but also listen to where you're going, get a good copyist. That's another thing, somebody who will edit your score and is correct, because I do a lot of composition. I just did the ASCAP awards for the last 2 years. Make sure that your score is clear, but that shouldn't define where you're going. You need to go listen, look at other composers, look at their music, absorb the harmonic changes, and that will help you in overall color of your music. Not stealing, but listening to the colors, listening to what other accents, which, changes in colors, old composers to new composers, and don't be afraid to absorb it in your composition.
I would definitely do that. More listening. I'm always for more listening.
Well, to that point, can you share with us a few composers you're listening to, especially as it relates to this piece?
So a few composers that I was listening to at this time when I was writing this was John Risto. I was listening to Carlos Simon. I was listening to, who else was I listening to at the time? Takashi Yoshimatsu. I was listening to a lot of his music at the time. So I can definitely hear the influences with that, and I feel like they're all similar in some sort of way. And that's one thing I'm trying to get better at now is diversifying my listening to things that I wouldn't normally listen to. Mm-hmm. Even if it's things that I don't necessarily like, I should still kind of force myself to listen to it so I can find things in it that I like. Then if I don't like something, figure out why I don't like it, and then try to implement it in that way.
For sure. That makes sense, the list that you said, because they're all great composers, but they're not necessarily very adventurous in terms of harmony.
Yeah.
And which is, that works for them. But I think what Marshall Williams said makes sense. To deal with color and have the broadest palette possible, you have to have it in your brain computer. So the more you listen to, the wider your palette selection becomes, and the more choices you'll hear in certain sections. Mm-hmm. That'll just make it that much better.
To Dr. Lomax's point, would you mind sharing with us where you are in your journey in forming your ethos, your point of view as a composer? What are some of the broader or specific statements, messages that you'd like to get across in your output?
I think currently, this past year has just been a lot of self-discovery for me. And I've been really discovering that with composition, it's more so, it's like music is important, but what composition really is who and what you are as a person. So that's just been my biggest thing with, I started composing my freshman year of undergrad. That was my first time really jumping into it, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and of course, with time I kind of experienced and learned what to do, but I didn't really understand the heart of what composing is until, I started my master's degree at Michigan. So that's just been my biggest thing now, is really trying to be vulnerable with my music and not being afraid of showing who I truly am.
If I could offer just something very quick, if you want to think about this in a formulaic way, I remember just saying a couple of moments ago about making a case for the text, and a maestro just explained how important it is to be listening across, certainly with your contemporaries, and then creating Sankofa moments for you to listen to the music of the past, but make sure that in that process you're filtering all of that diligence through your phenomenological experiences, the things in your life, the events or the thoughts or the emotions that come up for you, so that way you have a set of tools by which to filter, by which to clearly demarcate the things that you would like to say. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cool. Before we wrap, do you have any questions for any of us?
I actually have one question. I'm trying to find the part of the score really fast. So it was measures like 102 to 106. Did you feel as though how I set the text in the range, do you feel like I should have did that a little differently? Because when I was composing it, I felt as though, in my mind, I felt like it could have projected, but actually hearing it, you just can't really tell what exactly you're hearing text-wise, so I just wanted to hear everyone's opinion on that.
Well, we get to cheat out in writing as well, and not just singing. So for me, a particular moment occurs in measure 106 with the last words could not. So because that is supported by a silence in the accompaniment, you could really go for a stark intervallic change. So I'm immediately thinking about tritones to color more discordant moments or to support more stringent emotions. So that's just one thing that comes to mind. Especially when the accompaniment falls out, go ahead and be drastic.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. When the accompaniment drops out, then you have the ability to do many different things and go for it. Like I said, it's your open moment because nothing's blocking. But at the same time, be careful that the words that you're using will not. Sometimes people go with that open moment and you can't figure out what they're saying. So that's what you need to be careful of. You need to, if it's going to be a dramatic moment, it needs to be dramatic musically as well as an open moment where we can understand what that means. We need to understand why you did that. So that's important.
Yeah, and to that point, just to keep it going, I actually think that measure 106 can start to be set up at measure 93 or 94, right? Because you're talking about folks leaving, and this person that's speaking went farther than everyone else, right? And so you can create all this drama from 93 and 94 to set up when the piano drops and then the voice is alone at I emphasize could not. And that could be a lot of drama there.
And perhaps accelerating rhythm with
Yeah,
that too.
yeah, accelerating rhythm, more crunchy, more funky harmony, right? Because it's a dissonant kind of memory, right? And so you have to, I think, you have an opportunity, not you have to, you have an opportunity to really express that in those 10 measures or so. Any other questions?
I believe that's it. I don't really have anything that was really glaring. That was like the biggest thing I was kind of worried about when I was composing it and workshopping it and things like that. But thank you so much for all the feedback. Like, Jim, like seriously, this means the world. And I will definitely implement everything that was said. It was great feedback.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Write more music.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall, for being here with us and your wonderful words of wisdom. And thank you, Willie, for your submission. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from it. And also for my wonderful colleagues back here. It's just wonderful to see you all. It's a great honor for me to be here. So I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.